When being intimate with my boyfriend, he likes to take off my glasses and says he loves my slightly squinted peach blossom eyes the most. Until I heard him boasting about me to others. She can't see clearly, and she doesn't have time to stop those tricks. So she just endures them silently. TSK. It's exciting throughout. Someone laughed and asked him how he managed to win me over. Clyde smiled mysteriously. Conservative girls are all the same. They will only give themselves to the man who sincerely wants to marry them. I bought a small old and shabby apartment in full payment and only put Doris's name on it. She was so touched that she thought I had staked all my wealth on her. How could she bear to refuse me? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. In order to save money for the wedding, I worked part-time as a wedding planner in my best friend's company. One day, I went to a hotel to meet a super client. While waiting in the lobby bar, I heard a man ask frivolously, "Master Clyde, haven't you ended your Cinderella poverty alleviation plan yet? Your marriage alliance with the Carter family has been confirmed, and the wedding date is approaching." I subconsciously tilted my head slightly. Clyde. This rich second generation's name is the same as my boyfriend's. But my boyfriend is just a salesman in a medical device company. Unexpectedly, the next moment, a familiar voice came. Why the hurry? There's still a month to go. I'm a bit reluctant to part with Doris. In an instant, it was as if a bucket of ice water was poured over my head, and I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. Doris. That's me. The other person let out a scoff. Are you really in love? Clyde took a casual sip of his wine. Not really. It's just that we are physically compatible. And, Clyde lowered his voice. She's nearsighted and can't see clearly. She doesn't have time to stop some tricks. So she just endures them silently. TSK. It's exciting throughout. The other person laughed loudly. That girl was once chased high profile by the young master of the Clarence family. He gave her a Maserati and a Hermes. But he still couldn't win her over. I heard she's very innocent. How did you manage to make such a powerful move right from the start? Clyde smiled mysteriously. Conservative girls will only give themselves to the man who sincerely wants to marry them. I bought a small old and shabby apartment in full payment and only put Doris's name on it. She was so touched that she thought I had staked all my wealth on her. How could she bear to refuse me? It's like driving a donkey. You need to have a clear carrot hanging in front. Giving a car or a bag can't prove that you want to marry her. But buying an apartment in full payment is that carrot. After saying that, Clyde seemed a bit impatient and turned to ask the butler beside him why Miss Carter hadn't come yet. Didn't they agree to meet the wedding planner together? I was suddenly stunned. The client I was dealing with today seemed to have the surname Shin. In the blink of an eye, Clyde had picked up his trench coat and thrown it over his shoulder. I'm very busy. I'll go first. Tell Crystal to handle it as she sees fit. She can have the final say. Then, he ordered the driver. Go to that internet-famous cake shop in the south of the city. His friend who came with him teased. You don't have time to accompany your fiancé to decide on the wedding matters. But you have time to take a detour to buy cheap little cakes for the Cinderella. Clyde kicked him. Get lost. Then he added with some regret. Actually, if it weren't for her nearsightedness and I don't want our son to inherit the myopia gene, even if my parents don't agree, I'd be willing to fight for her. What a pity. I sat there blankly. I recalled the kiss that Clyde planted on my forehead when I got up in the morning. At that time, I blushed and pushed him away. I didn't like what you did last night. Clyde combed my hair for me. I won't do it again next time. You said the same thing last time. Clyde wasn't annoyed and smiled. What should I do then? How about I do it again in the way that Doris likes? I blushed so much that even my neck turned red. Shut up. Aren't you going to work overtime? Why don't you leave? Clyde pretended to look at his watch. Yeah, I really have to go. Or I won't get the perfect attendance bonus this month. I still need to save money to buy a bigger house for Doris. The kind with a north-south ventilation and a super large floor-to-ceiling window. For the 100th time, I told him that I really like our current house. Although it's old, it's very cozy. Actually, you don't have to put only my name on the property deed. After all, you're the one who paid for it. If your uncle and aunt find out, they will definitely be unhappy. Clyde got dressed neatly and gave me a goodbye kiss. Why not? In case I'm not by your side in the future, at least I can leave you a shelter. I blamed him for saying such unlucky things, but I didn't expect that what he said was true. The prince will eventually return to the castle to marry the princess, while the Cinderella is still foolishly working part-time to save money. hoping to set up a decent home. A cold female voice interrupted my memories. Sorry, I'm late. I'm Crystal Carter. The girl in front of me was wearing a white suit. Her hair was smoothly draped over her shoulders. Her eyebrows and eyes were gentle, and there was a hint of sincere apology on her face. Crystal took out a box of exquisitely packaged perfume from her bag and handed it to me. A small gift. Thank you for waiting for me. I glanced down at the perfume. It was a luxury brand, and a 30-milliliter bottle cost more than $3,000. I was about to refuse when Crystal's best friend just came in. The guy left early. He left a message saying that the wedding budget is $3 million. And it's okay if it exceeds a bit. He told you to do it according to your own preferences. He doesn't even have the time to accompany you to meet the wedding planner. How much can he love you? While stuffing the perfume into my hand, Crystal said casually, who cares about love or not? It's just a marriage alliance. I don't ask about things before marriage. As long as he settles down after marriage. Even if he cheats after marriage, I can only celebrate with champagne. I'll just be losing a rotten cucumber. And the Clyde family will at least give me a 30% profit. I'll make a killing. I was originally hesitating whether to tell her the truth. But now I silently swallowed it back. Is this the world of the rich? Whether there is love or not doesn't matter at all. Interests are eternal. Crystal called the waiter again and ordered some light meals and desserts before turning her attention to me. Doris. Right. I've seen your works. They're very creative. It's the style I like. This document is my basic requirement for the wedding. Take a look at it first. The other party's requirements were very clear. The venue was set in the Bulgari Hotel. The hotel would be booked out on the wedding day. The wedding banquet would cost $23,888 per table, and 50 tables were to be prepared. The wedding should be themed around calla lilies. I looked at it carefully and made a suggestion. If we enter the venue a week in advance for the decoration, we have to pay a large sum of money to the hotel. It's really unnecessary. 3 days in advance is enough. I can hurry up with the decoration progress on my side. From the perspective of cost-effectiveness, when I looked up, Crystal was smiling at me. I suddenly realized something. Something like, cost-effectiveness, never appears in their dictionary. I said in a low voice. I was wrong. Let's enter the venue a week in advance. At this time, the waiter brought the food. I subconsciously moved my things to the chair to avoid affecting her meal. But I saw Crystal push the plate towards me. Eat. I looked up in surprise. Crystal raised her chin, indicating that I shouldn't be polite. You look very pale. Are you hypoglycemic? Eat something first. After finishing the discussion with Crystal, I walked alone on the plain tree-lined road bathed in sunlight and dialed my best friend Ashley's phone number. The suppressed emotions were finally released. I said with a sobbing voice, Clyde is going to marry someone else. Ashley didn't seem to know what she was busy with and said casually, then break up. The next one will be nicer. But Clyde and I have already had a relationship. At the end, my voice was almost lower than a mosquito's. Ashley seemed to roll her eyes. So what? After listening to the whole story, Ashley was silent for a while and then tentatively said, Doris, how about we finish this order first? I don't really have to take this job. I just feel it's not worth it for you. Why should you be played for a fool? Miss Crystal clearly said that if she's satisfied with the final wedding effect, in addition to the fees that the wedding planner should receive, she's willing to give you an additional $300,000 as a thank you fee. I'll give you all the profits from this business after deducting the company's cost expenses. Don't be silly. Besides love, you also need bread. I finally agreed to Ashley. Clyde, I will plan an unprecedented wedding for you. When I got home that night, Clyde was making soup in the kitchen. When he saw me come back, he said excitedly, Honey, the black pig ribs in the supermarket were 30% off today. I bought some and made soup for you. Take a rest. It'll be ready soon. I couldn't help but curl my lips in mockery. How can a person be so schizophrenic? A person who spends $3 million on a wedding actually buys discounted pork ribs. Clyde carefully brought the soup out. Drink it while it's hot. I scooped a spoonful without much interest. It's too salty and fishy. Clyde was taken aback. In the past, when he cooked, I would always feel sorry for him for working all day and still having to cook when he came back. And I would eat everything up while scolding him. I had never said it was not delicious. This was the first time. Clyde put away the bowl with a good temper. Then don't drink it. What do you want to eat? I'll order takeout for you. I'm not hungry. You can eat it yourself. He tentatively asked me, Are you in a bad mood today? I lowered my eyes. I'm a bit tired. Clyde immediately started massaging my shoulders. Why does your company make you work overtime even on weekends? Don't go next time. He doesn't know that I'm working part-time as a wedding planner. As he was massaging, his hands started to move down restlessly. I held his hands and stuffed a medical diagnosis certificate into his hand. The doctor said I had a ruptured corpus luteum and I can't have a relationship for a month. Of course, it was a fake certificate. I just didn't want to have a breakup sex with him. I even secretly hoped that he would reveal the truth in advance because of this and end this false relationship. But Clyde just frowned. Did I really hurt you? I'm sorry. Don't worry. I'll take good care of you. Me? Why is it different from what I expected? Clyde really started to take good care of me. He looked up the precautions on the internet, reminded me to take my medicine and rest on time every day, and took care of all the housework. He even wanted to accompany me to the hospital for a re-examination. I refused on the pretext of being shy. Are you kidding me? Wouldn't that give the game away? At the same time, the planning of Crystal's wedding was also proceeding in an orderly manner. She was very satisfied with my planning plan. Miss Doris, your design plan is even more amazing than I expected. I smiled but didn't say anything. Some of the small design ideas were my personal treasures. I originally wanted to use them for my wedding with Clyde. Since I don't need them now, I naturally piled them into this grand wedding without any hesitation. When Crystal's best friend was marveling, she was also a bit indignant. Clyde is too much. He really acts like a hands-off boss. He hasn't shown up even once. Crystal didn't care. Men don't want to waste time on trivial matters. Let him be. But I unexpectedly remembered that when we just bought the house, Clyde was in high spirits. The two of us went to the furniture city every weekend. From the wallpaper and floor tiles to a lamp and a tissue box. We personally selected everything together. At that time, I really thought I had found a treasure of a man. Thinking about it now, it was just a role-playing game for the young master. 7 days before the wedding, the construction team entered the venue. 6 days before the wedding, the host appeared for the first time. It was a well-known host who could often be seen on TV. I heard that he was an old family friend of the Carter family and specially came to host the wedding this time. I listened to the script once, and it was indeed excellent. It wasn't too sentimental and was very warm and friendly. 5 days before the wedding, I personally set up a rainbow in the center of the auditorium. The handmade colorful silk threads customized from Belgium were a full 100,000 meters long. In the 8-meter-high auditorium space, they were made on the spot one by one. From the color matching to the gradient rendering, I did it all by myself. It took a full 2 days and 2 nights to complete. A halo that was not a rainbow but was even more beautiful than a rainbow spilled into the auditorium from the skylight, outlining a gorgeous light. Crystal stared at it for a long time, and there seemed to be a glimmer of tears in her eyes. What's the name of this design? I was lost in thought for a while and then answered in a low voice. Some people are like rainbows. You only know they exist when you meet them. Crystal forced a smile and looked at me. On the wedding day, I want to throw the bouquet to you. I was just about to decline when Clyde's voice came from a distance. This rainbow is amazing. Who made it? Crystal greeted him. Why do you have time to come today? Clyde picked up his phone to take a photo of the rainbow, casually perfunctory a few words, and then started to look down at his phone. The next moment, my phone rang. It was a message from Clyde, along with a photo. Honey, look at the venue decoration for the company event. Isn't it beautiful? Almost at the same time, Clyde, who heard the commotion, frowned and looked towards the screen. Is there someone behind there? Crystal smiled and replied, this is our wedding planner. This rainbow was made by her. Shall I introduce you to her? Clyde stared closely at the screen and walked closer step by step. Crystal looked at him with some confusion. The next moment, the screen was suddenly pulled open, and there was no one inside. Ashley came over. You can tell me if you have any requirements. I'm the boss of the wedding company. The planner had something to do and left first. Clyde came to his senses. It's okay. I just remembered that I made an appointment with someone. I'll leave first. After saying that, he turned around and left in big strides. Seeing that there was no one around, Ashley said to the phone, he's gone. I said gratefully, thank you. That night, Clyde came home. As soon as he entered the door, he came up to me. I brought you a gift. After saying that, a rainbow-colored hand rope was wrapped around my wrist. As Clyde tied it, he observed my expression. I remained composed and said, it looks nice. Clyde studied my face and said, honey, Do you have anything to say to me? I lowered my eyes for a while, then raised my eyebrows with a smile and said, What? Do I really have to say thank you just for a hand rope? Seeing that I was acting as usual, Clyde let out a sigh of relief and said, This isn't an ordinary hand rope. Have you heard that saying? Some people are like rainbows. You only know they exist when you meet them. I pushed him away and said, Aren't you being cheesy? Clyde smiled and took my hand, saying, Doris, I will definitely marry you. Will you wait for me for 3 years? I'm already working hard. I didn't answer, but somehow I remembered a hypnosis experience a long time ago. When the hypnosis ended, the hypnotist whispered in my ear, Next, I will count down from 5 to 0. With each number, you will feel more and more awake. When I count to 1, you will be able to open your eyes. When I count to 0, you will be completely awake and feel better than before. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now. 0. The countdown to the wedding, for me, was the prelude to waking up. The day before the wedding, Clyde calmly told me that he had to go on a business trip for a few days. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he said, Wait for me to come back. I have something to tell you. I concealed the mockery in my eyes and said, Okay, I'm looking forward to it. On the morning of the wedding day, Ashley came to pick me up and said, Are you really going to the wedding venue? Are you not planning to disrupt the wedding? I carefully checked the wedding process and coordinated with the makeup artist, lighting engineer, and sound engineer at the same time. Taking a momentary break, I casually replied, What are you thinking? This is just my job. I'm the wedding planner and I know the whole process best. If I don't go, who will control the scene? Ashley held my hand and asked, Aren't you feeling sad? I thought about it carefully and said, I was sad before, but during the entire 30-day preparation period, the most painful days had already been lost in the busyness. When I got involved in this situation, I realized that I was never really part of the game. Clyde, I can accept that I loved the wrong person, but I can't accept that you played me for a fool. So, it's time to end this. The wedding turned out to be unexpectedly perfect. Calla lilies covered the entire auditorium. The crystal elements were arranged just right, neither too monotonous nor too complicated. It received a lot of praise from the guests. This is the most amazing wedding I've ever attended. I wonder which wedding company did this. I want my wedding to be like this when I get married in the future. That rainbow was really shocking. At first glance, it looked real. Ashley handed out business cards until her hands were sore and added the contacts of many potential customers. She could hardly keep the smile off her face. As the groom, Clyde wore a proper smile throughout the whole process. Standing together with Crystal, they truly made a handsome couple and were well matched in social status. During the thank you session of the wedding, Crystal stood on the stage and waved at me, saying, For this wedding, I want to especially thank my wedding planner, Doris. If every girl has dreamed of a wedding since she was a child, then she is the one who made my dream come true. I was slightly stunned. This wasn't the planned part of the ceremony. Caught off guard, the spotlight shone on me. In an instant, Clyde's face turned pale. He tried to stop Crystal from handing me the microphone and whispered in a voice that only I could hear, Doris, don't make trouble. This isn't an occasion for you to participate in. I promised that I would marry you. Can't you even wait for 3 years? I carefully examined Clyde. His entire face was pale, and there were fine beads of sweat on his forehead. His makeup was starting to smudge. I smiled. Clyde still thought that I was there to disrupt the wedding. It seemed that competing for him, this hot commodity, was a perfectly normal choice for me. I ignored him and calmly took the microphone that Crystal handed me, saying, I also want to thank Miss Crystal for trusting me and entrusting such an important wedding to me. Here, I sincerely wish the newlyweds well. I wish you to stay together through thick and thin, travel together in the world, always keep each other in your hearts, and be with each other until old age. It wasn't until I handed the microphone back to Crystal that Clyde's tense body relaxed. He was as if he had just been fished out of the water. Many people in the audience noticed his abnormality and whispered, What's wrong with the groom? He looks so strange. Is there something wrong with his health? After the ceremony ended, Clyde blocked me backstage. He roughly pulled me into an empty room and almost roared at me. Who allowed you to act on your own? If Crystal finds out, the cooperation between the two families will be impossible. Do you know how much loss this will cause? This was the first time Clyde had been so stern with me. He was completely different from his usual gentle and considerate self. I looked up at him as if I were looking at a stranger. Clyde was taken aback for a moment and realized his gaffe. He slumped onto the chair as if he had lost all his strength and said, "Doris, I didn't mean to be harsh on you. It's just that you should have discussed it with me first." I laughed mockingly and said, "Do you even hear what you're saying? When I found out you were cheating, my first reaction was to discuss it with you. Clyde, let's break up." Clyde reached out to grab me, but I sidestepped to avoid him. I said I would definitely marry you. Why don't you believe me? I've already thought of a way for you. The way Clyde mentioned was for me to be his mistress for 3 years. During this period, he would drug Crystal to ensure that she would never get pregnant. At the same time, he would speed up the cooperation between the two families to maximize the interests of the Clyde family. After 3 years, Clyde would give me a child. By then, my parents will definitely be dissatisfied that Crystal hasn't had a child. Then you can go to our house with the child and make a scene, demanding a proper status for yourself and the child. I believe that for the sake of their grandson, my parents will definitely agree. At that time, I will divorce Crystal, and we can be together properly and never be apart again. I was stunned and said, "This is the way you thought of for me." Clyde nodded with a hint of regret and said, "The biggest problem is that I can't stay with you as much as before during these 3 years. You have to be patient." I raised my hand and slapped him crisply, saying, "Scumbag, in the way you envisioned, my dignity and personality, as well as another woman's health, are all insignificant. Right, then what? Should I be overwhelmed with gratitude?" Clyde seemed not to expect that I would hit him. After being stunned for a long time, he leaned back and regarded me with the posture of a superior, saying, "Doris, calm down. Considering the pros and cons, isn't this the only way for you to cross social classes? As long as you endure this once, you can enjoy the life of a wealthy wife in the future. Isn't it worth it?" I sneered and said, "Do you love me?" Clyde's eyes softened slightly and he said, "Of course I do." I stared into his eyes and said, "I also thought of a way for you. You break away from your family and be with me. From now on, we will work hard together." Clyde frowned and said, "Don't talk nonsense out of anger. You know I can't do that." I laughed in disbelief and said, "Since you can't let go of your status as a young master, don't act like you're deeply in love and can't live without me here. Clyde might love me, but he loves himself more. It's normal, because, so do I." Before I turned to leave, I gave him a piece of advice. "Clyde, if a person wants everything, in the end, they will end up with nothing." Then, I reached out to open the door, but Clyde was quick and locked it first. The next moment, the familiar breath approached, and I was pinned against the wall by Clyde. He rubbed his nose against my cheek and said, "Don't be naughty, okay?" His fingers moved restlessly downward, as I did every time. I looked up obediently. Just when Clyde was about to relax his hold, I suddenly raised my leg and kicked him between his legs. Clyde let out a pained groan and then became furious, shouting, "Doris, don't be ungrateful." Just as he raised his hand to grab me, Crystal's voice came from outside the door. "Clyde, are you in there? It's time to propose a toast." Clyde immediately became nervous. I slipped into the cloakroom. I didn't come out until I heard Clyde limping away with Crystal. The next moment, my pupils shrank. On the table was a bouquet of calla lilies covered in dewdrops. It was the bride's bouquet. After the wedding ceremony was completed, I left early. Ashley could handle the remaining work, and I didn't want to see Clyde again. I went home as quickly as possible, packed up Clyde's things, and threw them into the trash bin downstairs. I packed my own things into a suitcase and called a flash delivery service to send them to Ashley's house. I looked around the empty house for the last time. The warm decorations were still there, but I could never regain the original mood. I called the real estate agent and put the house up for sale. Then I took off the rainbow hand rope on my wrist and let it fall to the floor without any hesitation. Almost at the same time, a message from Clyde popped up. "Doris, what I said just now still stands. If you regret it, send me that emoji." Okay. The emoji Clyde mentioned was a picture of a kitten. The kitten stared at the screen confidently, with the caption, "Do you want to be reasonable, or do you want me?" Every time I had an argument with Clyde in the past and I didn't want to admit I was wrong, I would send him this emoji. Clyde could never do anything about it and would always say, "I want you, my little ancestor." It always worked. But this time, I raised my hand and deleted that emoji. Clyde's message popped up again. "Within 3 years, I can give you everything except a proper status. After 3 years, I can even give you my life." I blocked Clyde without hesitation. Clyde always thought that Crystal was his responsibility and I was his love. Love and responsibility can be separated. But he doesn't understand that in the end, love depends on one's conscience. That night, Crystal transferred $300,000 to my account as a thank you fee for being satisfied with the wedding, as promised. At the same time, Ashley calculated the cost of the entire wedding, including personnel bonuses. She transferred all the remaining profits to me. In total, I now have $158 million in my account. A few days later, the real estate agent contacted me and said that someone wanted to view the house, but there was a man sitting in front of the house who refused to let them in no matter what. The agent was speechless and said, "That man is holding a colorful hand rope and sitting at the door. He won't let anyone in. He insists that this is his home. Those eyes. TSK. He's really fierce." At that time, I was sitting in the waiting lounge with client information spread out on the table in front of me. Hearing the agent's complaint, I said calmly, "If you really can't handle it, you can call the police." Later, the agent told me that they really called the police. The man left in a daze after being persuaded by the police. Ashley asked me, "Do you really not care anymore?" I thought about it and said seriously, "I still care a bit." Just as she was about to fly into a rage and give me a good beating, I finished the rest of the sentence. "In case they lower the price of my house because of this." Ashley stopped in time and said, "That shouldn't happen. That house has now become a school district house, and the price has been rising all the way. Clyde might not be a good person, but he has a sharp eye." In the end, that small, old and shabby house was sold at a high price of $378 million, adding another sum of money to my account. Ashley said that I exchanged my love for wealth and career from the god of wealth. I thought about it and said with certainty, then I should be able to make him go bankrupt. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye, and I returned to this city again. Actually, I didn't plan to come back originally, but there happened to be a client who wanted to hold a wedding in City A. The client was very sincere and said that they were willing to wait for my schedule, so I couldn't decline. Even though I had prepared myself for a reunion with Clyde before coming back, I still didn't expect that this moment would come so soon. I looked at Clyde, who was pretending to have a chance encounter in the hotel lobby, feeling a bit speechless. His face was red, but he insisted on not moving aside. Clyde's gaze fell on my eyes and he said, "You've become even more beautiful." I said meaningfully, "Yeah, I had a myopia surgery and I don't need to wear glasses anymore." Clyde still doesn't know that I heard his conversation with his friend. He just nodded and said, "Your eyes are very beautiful and should be shown." I nodded but didn't say anything. The atmosphere became awkward. Clyde tried to speak again and said, "I heard that you've become a freelance wedding planner and are very successful now. Over these 3 years, I have grown step by step. I quit my job and became a full-time wedding planner. Most of the work is still in cooperation with Ashley, and I also take on some private orders myself. Ashley doesn't mind and instead fully supports me. Up to now, I have become an excellent independent wedding planner. Of course, my fees are also quite high." Clyde seemed to open up all of a sudden and started complaining about his dissatisfaction over the past few years. He said that Crystal had been suppressing him all these years. It was clearly a mutually beneficial cooperation between the two families. But in the end, the biggest beneficiary was the Carter family. Moreover, Crystal had always been indifferent to him. Clyde complained, "I took the initiative to cook a meal for her, but after taking a few bites, she actually said that in the future, professionals should do professional work. She told me not to steal the chef's job. She also said that the chef's cooking was better." Before he could finish, I interrupted him and said, "I was just pretending before. Actually, it really didn't taste good, and I'm not interested in hearing this." Clyde could complain about Crystal to me, and naturally, he could also complain about me to Crystal. I could even imagine him complaining to Crystal about how greedy I was. Clyde was silent for a long time and suddenly said, "Crystal has filed for divorce. Do you know? I don't think she has ever loved me. Sometimes I tried to be nice to her, but she just frowned and told me there was no need to do that." I was impatient and said, "So what, Clyde? If love is the greatest hardship you've ever endured, then I really can't sympathize with you. After all, in this world, most people are still struggling for a little money. Even though I'm not short of money now, I still don't dare to stop moving forward. After all, I don't have Clyde's family background, and there's no one to support me." Just as I was about to stand up and leave, Clyde tried to hold me back, but he was blocked by someone. "Hey, you can't be impolite to a lady." I don't know when Charlie blocked in front of me and casually handed me a notebook, saying, "Miss Doris, you left this behind." Clyde was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Who is he? Charlie and I spoke at the same time. Me, a client. Charlie, my boyfriend. After saying that, we looked at each other. I glared at him. Charlie made a wronged face. In the end, I compromised. Okay. Then I changed my words. A bed partner. Charlie looked at me in shock and said, "That's not what you said last night." I gritted my teeth and said, "We were all drunk. It was a consensual thing. Why are you asking for responsibility now?" Charlie pouted and compromised, nodding at Clyde and saying, "Okay, a bed partner." Clyde looked at me in disbelief and said, "You've changed a lot. Are you over me?" Clyde grinned and said, "You're even more attractive now." Then he was punched hard by Charlie. Charlie specifically punched him in the face. I looked up at the sky speechlessly. What on earth is going on? Clyde immediately called the police, claiming that he wanted to send Charlie to jail. But he was held down by Clyde's parents who came later. "Sorry, officer. It's all a misunderstanding. It's just a fight between kids. We'll settle it privately." The police nodded in agreement and said, "Yeah, one is 23 and the other is 28. They're really too young. Just give him a good beating at home." Clyde was persistent, but he was slapped in the face by his father. The company just received the investment contract from Charlie's family yesterday. So what if their young master Charlie punched you a couple of times? Although Clyde's mother felt sorry for him, she still forced Clyde to apologize to Charlie. Clyde's face was full of resentment. Charlie didn't back down either. No need. Who dares to accept such an apology? You look like you're saying, "I'm apologizing to you. So kneel down and listen." Clyde's mother was shrewd and turned her gaze to me. "This must be Miss Doris. Right. I've always wanted to meet you. But I never had the chance. What a nice girl. She's good-looking and capable. You don't hit someone who's smiling at you. Moreover, if we look into this matter, it was Charlie who started the fight. I didn't want him to get into trouble because of me. So I indicated that we should just let it go." After finally seeing off these big shots, I turned around and saw a familiar figure. Crystal walked over generously and said, "Shall we have a drink?" Crystal and I sat down in the executive lounge. After being silent for a while, we spoke at the same time. "Sorry, thank you." Then we both laughed. "I'm thanking you for the wedding you planned for me. I'm sorry for not telling you about me and Clyde at the first moment." Crystal didn't care and said, "You were afraid you wouldn't get the final payment. I understand. People in the world pursue profit, and you and I are no exception." I couldn't help but ask, "I heard you filed for divorce." Crystal nodded and said, "I've already achieved my goal." Crystal told me a long story. She said that she originally had a fiancé who was her childhood sweetheart, and he was an excellent and kind person. He was so excellent that Crystal often wondered why such a good person had always obeyed her since they were children. The man protected Crystal as she grew up. Before she was 20 years old, Crystal was like an innocent little girl who didn't understand the world. Unfortunately, before the two of them could get married, the man was in a car accident and became a vegetable. Crystal took a sip of wine and said, "Do you know the Brandon family?" I nodded. The Brandon family was originally a top wealthy family, but recently a lot of negative news about them was exposed. It caused a great stir, and now they are starting bankruptcy liquidation. Several of their leaders have also been sentenced. Crystal said calmly, "I did it." Crystal said that she married into the Clyde family for the purpose of using their power to bring down the Brandon family, because she accidentally discovered that the Brandon family was behind her fiancé's accident. So, the girl who didn't know the hardships of the world forced herself to become strong and unscrupulous. Now that her goal has been achieved, she's going back to him. Crystal looked up at me and said, "Clyde and I didn't have anything happen between us. If you still like him." I raised my eyebrows and said, "No." Crystal smiled and clinked glasses with me, saying, "I thought so." Before Crystal left, I asked, "Has your fiancé woken up?" Crystal smiled and waved her phone, saying, "I never turn off my phone or put it on silent, because I'm afraid of missing the call telling me that he's woken up." I raised my glass and toasted from a distance, saying, "He will wake up." Crystal turned and left, wearing a white dress and holding her head high. She was like a blooming calla lily. I suddenly remembered the meaning of the calla lily. Love that lasts until death. The divorce between Crystal and Clyde caused a great stir, but I unexpectedly became the biggest beneficiary. That grand wedding was dug up and examined by netizens. People lamented that such a magnificent wedding only lasted for less than 3 years of marriage. Then, there were countless consultations and reservations. I started to be so busy that I didn't even have time to touch the ground. Ashley was both happy and resentful. She kept muttering, "There's no end to the money we can earn. There's really no end to it." Just when I was at my busiest, Clyde seemed to be stimulated by Charlie and started to pursue me in a high-profile way. Although the Clyde family was no longer as wealthy as before, it was still better off than an ordinary family. Clyde sent flowers, bags, and cars. He would definitely appear downstairs of the company every day. Many people secretly placed bets, guessing what Clyde would send today. But all I felt was how annoying it was to be disturbed when I was busy. So one evening, I finally couldn't stand it anymore and went downstairs to see him. When Clyde saw me appear, his eyes lit up and he said, "Doris, I've finally sorted everything out. We can be together forever now." I reached out my hand to him and said, "What are you sending today?" Seeing my unusual attitude, Clyde thought he had finally touched me. He handed me a jewelry box, and inside was a 5-flower bracelet full of diamonds. Clyde reached out to put it on me and deliberately showed the old rainbow hand rope on his wrist. I withdrew my hand. The jewelry box slipped from my fingers and fell to the ground with a snap. Clyde bent down to pick up the jewelry box that had gotten dusty, gently brushed off the dirt, and looked a bit wronged, saying, "Are you still angry?" I said calmly, "Is there no carrot this time? After all, sending a car or a bag isn't the carrot hanging in front of the donkey, right?" Clyde's pupils suddenly shrank. Memories came flooding back. The Clyde from 3 years ago whispered in the ear of the current Clyde, "It's like driving a donkey. You need to have a clear carrot hanging in front. Giving a car or a bag can't prove that you want to marry her. But buying an apartment in full payment is that carrot." For the first time, a look of panic appeared on Clyde's face. Before this, he always thought that I was just angry that he had chosen someone else. He said in a panic, "It's not like that. I can explain. In our circle, if you're sincere to a woman, you'll be mocked. So I was just pretending not to care about you." I raised my hand to stop his incoherent explanation and said, "It doesn't matter anymore. Clyde, I don't love you anymore. From the moment you said that I was willing to have a relationship with you because you bought me an apartment in full payment, we couldn't go on anymore. Do you remember? Our first intimacy didn't happen on the day you bought the house. My first intimate moment with Clyde happened during the process of decorating the house. At that time, we were happily going to the furniture city. One weekend, it was very hot. We visited 3 furniture cities before we found the tiles we liked. I was so tired that I even had a little temper with Clyde that day. Clyde was also very tired, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he took a few quick steps, squatted down in front of me, and turned back to smile and ask, "Do you want me to carry you?" The scorching sun shone through the swaying tree shadows, casting small pieces of light all around Clyde. A faint wind seemed to blow through my heart. At that moment, I thought, this is the one. As time passed, both Clyde and I seemed to have changed. The somewhat decadent man in front of me gradually overlapped with the warm smiling boy from the past. Clyde's fingers trembled slightly, and he finally realized that I wouldn't turn back. He held back his tears and looked up at me, saying, "I wish you all the best." I was vaguely disappointed. Actually, I wanted to hear a "sorry" more. I pointed at his wrist and said, "Throw that rainbow hand rope away." Clyde touched his wrist, turned around, and left, staggering as he walked. Just as he reached the middle of the road, the rainbow hand rope suddenly fell off without any warning. Clyde instinctively looked down, and a high beam of light suddenly shone on him unexpectedly. The sound of sudden braking sounded, with a loud bang. Clyde was like a kite with a broken string and fell heavily to the ground. Clyde didn't die, but he broke a leg. He no longer hung out with his friends and focused all his energy on the company. He looked as if he had aged 10 years. Clyde's parents tried to arrange a blind date for him several times, but he just perfunctorily said, "Let's see. City A is neither too big nor too small." Under my deliberate avoidance, I never saw Clyde again. But according to Crystal, Clyde still sends her blessing messages during festivals and, by the way, asks about my recent situation indirectly. I smiled helplessly and turned off the phone screen. Someone came up behind me and hugged me, and there was a nice soapy smell on him. "Sister, do you have a boyfriend?" I lied without changing my expression, saying, "I have a few." "Why?" Charlie was interrupted by me and gave up on his attempt, saying dejectedly, This isn't fair. I don't want to be just your bed partner. I want a proper status. After being silent for a while, I said, I'm leaving tomorrow. The new client is urging me. Charlie hugged my arm tighter, and his voice was a bit hoarse. If one day you want to settle down, can you look back at me? I stood up and left, saying, maybe, but not now. I want the unrestrained wind and the boundless sea. I want to see the grassland where it rains and the sky filled with stars. I still don't want to stop, and I won't stay for anyone. Epilogue. The next time I returned to City A was because Crystal's fiancé had woken up. She kept calling me nonstop and asked me to come back. She's nearsighted and can't see clearly. She doesn't have time to stop some tricks, so she just endures them silently. Crystal nervously pulled me outside the ward and said, I haven't told him that I was married once. Do you think he will mind? Crystal looked like a little girl who had done something wrong and completely lost her former elegant and ladylike appearance. I couldn't help but laugh and said, yes, he will definitely mind that he didn't wake up for so long and made his precious fiancé suffer. Crystal put her hands on her hips and said angrily, I'm telling you my worries, and all you do is laugh at me. I don't know when Ashley also came over. The two of us pushed Crystal into the ward together and said, hurry up. Confess and you'll be lenient. Resist and you'll be punished severely. Crystal finally mustered up the courage and said, I have something to tell you. Ashley and I eavesdropped at the door without caring about our appearance. Crystal kept talking with her head down, afraid that if she stopped for a second, she would lose all her courage. When she finally finished speaking, there was a silence in the ward. After a long time, a hoarse male voice said, my little Crystal, you must have had a hard time these years. Right, Before he could finish speaking, the thin man on the sickbed buried his face in his hands and cried silently. Crystal's eyes were red, and she nestled into the man's arms. The two of them hugged each other tightly, and neither of them wanted to let go. Outside the ward, I quietly closed the door. After going through the years and experiencing the chaos, we can finally face the past twists and turns calmly and say casually, it's just a bit of hardship and adversity.